Good evening, everyone. My name is John Tate, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that McNally Robinson Booksellers is located on Treaty 1 territory. That's the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples in the homeland of the Métis Nation. And in addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. We are gathered here tonight, both physically and virtually, with many thanks to Portage and Main Press to celebrate the launch. To celebrate the launch of Teacher Take Care, a guide to well-being and workplace wellness for educators. You'll be hearing from some of tonight's key contributors in just a few moments, but before we do, I just have a few housekeeping notes to review, always the most stimulating part of any event. So I'll thank you in advance for your forbearance. There'll be a series of presentations from up here at the podium. Following that, there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions. That applies to both you here physically in the space, as well as you watching on YouTube. If you are watching online, just write your questions into the chat. If you're here, please just put up your hand and, like Phil Donahue, I will rush over to you and place the microphone in front of your face. This is not because we don't believe you can project. This is simply to ensure that your questions are audible to everybody watching live at home and here in the space. So thank you very much for your indulgence there. And if you folks are waiting at the entryway, please do come in and join us. There are still seats available just to the side, and there is an aisle, and you will not walk in front of the camera. Following that, I'll be back just at the end to review signing procedure as well, because all of our books, as you will have noticed, are pre-signed, but there will be a few more details to review. But I'll leave that adrenaline-packed note for the end of the event. So without further ado, what I would like to do now is invite up a teacher and lifelong friend and colleague of senior author Jennifer E. Lawson. That will be Dana Quinn LaFleche.
My invite or my intro. I think you took it. Okay, so I'm gonna wing this nice. It's really nice long paper prepared. Thank you. And I was just like, oh no, I put it up here so I wouldn't forget it. So okay, so when I was asked to introduce Dr. Jennifer Lawson today, my first reaction was, wow, what an honor. I'm gonna cry. I am a lifelong friend of Jennifer, and like, I guess you could refer to her as my sister from the street. Back from the day when all of the kids on the street belonged to all of the parents on the street. Jennifer's a natural teacher, but by design in my eyes. Yeah, I don't know why I'm just like this. So I remember long ago, I must have been like 4 or 5, and I would go to her parents' house on the street and I'd sit on the front steps and I'd be like, I had quite the lisp, and she'd sit there and she'd go, circus. And I would say, you know, repeat after me, sunshine, and whatever, all those hours of her sitting on the stairs with me helped me, because I never actually had to have any formal speech training. Jennifer is an educator extraordinaire, having worked in rural and urban as a resource teacher, as an administrator. Hey, I think I've done all of that too. And I know she's been a respected school trustee and an outstanding author. With Portage and Main Press, she has created amazing resources for science, social studies, English language learners, and math used throughout Manitoba and Canada. And she recently celebrated her 50th published hands-on book. Okay, so great teachers attract other teachers to them. Teachers recharge when they're inspired. And Jennifer has inspired a wealth of great teachers and continues to do so. The team of amazing educators that she's brought together to share their stories in the production of Teacher Take Care just shows the diverse experiences that many teachers bring. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you my friend, Dr. Jennifer Lawson.
It's funny what this reminded me of. I had just birthed Devon, and I was doing a speech to the bride at Dana's wedding. So that kind of tells you something. I actually dropped her on her head when she was a baby as well. So we grew up on Sackville Street, and we've had very parallel lives. I became an educator. Dana became an educator. I became a math specialist. Dana is a master numeracy coach. I am mom to 2 sons. Dana is mom to 2 sons. We are dog lovers. But you know, I think my greatest claim to fame is that I taught her how to have the best parties in St. James. But she hasn't beat me yet. So there's still time to work on that one. Thank you so much, Dana. It means the world to me, my little sister, to have you here tonight to introduce me. So good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to have all of you here to share this celebration with us. And I know that the writers are looking forward to sharing their expertise with you. Before we get started, I would like to call up Catherine Gervasi for a moment, please. Right up to the front. Yeah. This lovely lady is my publisher. She's the owner of Portage Press and my dear colleague and friend for over 30 years. We were young women, almost girls, when we started together at Portage Press. And look at us now, right? Celebrating 50 books of hands-on that we worked on together for those 30 some odd years, and now celebrating this labor of love called Teacher Take Care. I want to thank Catherine for her support over the years personally, but more so because the work that comes out of Portage Press is authentic, genuine, ethical work that is meant to help teachers and help grow students. So I want to thank you for all your hard work, Catherine. Now, if I could ask Elder Stan Kipling to join me up at the podium. Stan is a proud Peguis First Nations individual with extensive experience in areas related to mental health of Indigenous populations. He was raised on the trap line, hunting, commercial fishing, and living on the land. Stan is a sun dancer and pipe carrier, as well as a traditional harvester of animals and plants, and he has also held sweat lodges. I have been so honored to work with Stan on this project to gain his perspective and guidance as we worked on this book. We are so proud as a group of writers that he blessed this book personally upon publication. Once he read the whole thing, that means so much to us, and he's here today to bless this event. Stan.
We greet Jennifer and all the writers. And so I just would like everybody to stand, please. So bonjour, washko and disankoff, wakwadutam. One of my names is Blue Star. I'm named after the last star on the handle of the Little Dipper. And my Christian name is Stan Kipling. And so I just want to say miigwech to everyone who joined us here for this event. And I want to thank the creator, Kichimana, for being with us as we went through this book. And, you know, we did all the good work. And so I'm going to ask him to bless this event and ask him to guide us, stand with us as we move forward from here. We want to ask him to watch over us and make sure that we move forward in a good way with a good heart. And our work we do, you know, we have to take care of ourselves So I want to ask him to make sure he watches over the writers, family members, and also the people who are reading this book, to remind them to take care of themselves. For the work we do is important work. We need to stand together. We need to open our hearts for the people we work with, the children, the youth. It's really important that Creator stands with us. He guides us. We need His hand on our shoulder as we walk through life, through this circle of life. So it's really important. Good work that the group is doing. And I'm feeling really blessed that I was a part of this, and hope to do my best in the future and try to be a good person, walk in a good way, as we all want to do. I'll say miigwech, 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 miigwech. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. I'm now going to introduce my dream team. We actually have a fabulous 15, but 5 of our authors are from Calgary, so they will be joining us live stream. So warm welcome to Cher, Laura, Dana, Megan, and Joyce, who are joining us online. We are actually having a live launch in Calgary next week, if anybody wants to come. And we will be celebrating that group of exceptional writers. A few of our key contributors tonight will be speaking alongside me at the general presentation, and I will introduce them during the session. But for now, I'd like you to meet our amazing Winnipeg wellness writers in order of their chapter contributions to the book. So, Keith McPherson, please stand up, Keith. A speaker, a yoga instructor, a certified professional coach, and a professional musician. And I actually heard him sing for me the very first time we met, so that's pretty cool. And he sang a Beatles song, Devin. There we go. Lisa Dumas-Neufeld is a Métis Mennonite educator working on her master's in peace and conflict studies, focusing her work on Indigenous education, trauma, and reconciliation. Jackie Gagne. I'm going to take a moment to feature my 2 boys, Devin and Jeremy. Jackie was their music teacher at Strathmillan when they were little boys, and their love of music comes much from her. So thank you, Jackie. Jackie is a vice principal now, former arts coordinator for the school division. She believes that all children should be immersed in engaging arts-based experiences and throughout their education and throughout their lives, right, Jackie? Exactly. Monica Chihos Rosny. We are really happy that Monica's here. We didn't think she'd make the virtual launch, which was a week and a half ago. So we're just so grateful. And I know that she's happy that she made this one because she was grateful to have met the virtual one because she wasn't sure she'd actually get to celebrate this event. Monica is an experienced educator, now working on her master's in marriage and family therapy, and is an advocate for culturally congruent community care. Kelsey McDonald, where's my Kelsey? Kelsey is a chemistry teacher, a school counselor, principal, and provincial consultant. She is working now on her MEd in the counseling psychology program at U of M. And Sandra Pacheco-Miller. Sandra has been a principal of a French immersion school, but recently became the director of curriculum, assessment, and professional learning in the St. James Assiniboine School Division. I am proud to say that I was part of that decision as one of the last things I did as a school trustee in St. James. So thank you, Sandra. Who did that? And these are just some of the members of our amazing team, and you will meet the rest in a few minutes. I'm going to tell you a bit about how this book came to be. Many of you know that I've written the hands-on series for years based on my passion for curriculum and hands-on student-centered learning and teaching. But my focus in education kind of changed a few years ago. I was teaching out at U of M. I was teaching on Zoom for the first time. I was teaching our pre-service teachers, and they were so stressed out. They were online for the first time. They were worried about getting to do their practicum, getting credits for that practicum. They weren't getting to know each other, which in those final years of education is so critical. You make friends, finally, after all those years bouncing around faculties. You make friends in that faculty, and that never happened for them. So they were so stressed. And at the same time, I was a school trustee in St. James. And I have to say that the superintendents kept saying, our teachers are fine, they're doing great. But you know what? My friends are all teachers. I see teachers in the back row that are laughing right now, Tricia. Because our teachers were not great. They were struggling. They were learning, what the heck is Seesaw? I now have to teach this platform. I don't know what Seesaw is. People have told me my whole career to teach hands-on. Now I have to be on Zoom with my kids, or I have to be on Teams. And they were pivoting from virtual to classroom and trying to take care of the best interest of their kids at the same time, which is what teachers always do first. And they were so stressed. I've never seen the level of imbalance of well-being in my entire career as I saw in those last few years. And so during one of my meetings with Catherine and Laura, our managing editor, I suggested the idea of a book for teachers on wellness. And you know, I told them I've got all these great colleagues, they can write. I didn't know they could write actually, but I kind of thought they could write. So I've got these people, they can write. And there was a lot of hesitation because I'm kind of only known for hands-on. And people know me by those books, right? And this was outside of my area, and it was maybe a little bit outside of Portage and Maine's area. But I remember, I can envision the moment online when Catherine kind of dropped her pen and said, you know what, let's just do this. Let's do it. And the rest was history. So with that, it was like, okay, yay, we can do this. But now it's, what are we gonna do? I had the idea of a few writers, but I had to build a team. I had to figure out a theoretical framework for this book. What was it going to mean? What was important to us? So we started with the idea of what is the leadership framework that we wanted this book to be about. And really what it came down to is my passion as an educator, and I know many people on my team, it's about being servant leaders, right? We serve other people so that they can do their best. So in the classroom as teachers, we serve kids in a way that allows them to flourish and learn and grow. And as a principal, and I'm so grateful that I have some of my teachers here from when I was a principal, I tried to support them in a way that allowed them to be their very best. And my team of writers, they do that every day. They don't maybe realize that they're servant leaders, but every single one of them works to support other people. And so we had this grounding in the book right from the beginning because of the kind of people we had on this team. And together they have created something so special within these pages. I'm going to brag, it's okay. It's a great book, okay? Something that speaks to the importance of well-being for educators, something that conveys the need to create schools that foster a safe and positive and inclusive culture for all, and most especially something that empowers each and every one of you out there to take care of yourself and to take care of others. And on that note, this is the perfect time to introduce Richelle North Star Scott, our knowledge keeper on the project. You see, along with that leadership lens, we wanted to ensure that we focused on and built in and infused an Indigenous perspective throughout the book and knowledge whenever we could. And North Star's contributions to this book have been absolutely immeasurable. I've learned so much from her. I'm so grateful for that. North Star is of Anishinaabe and Métis descent, and her ancestors are from St. Peter's Reserve. She is an Indigenous inclusion coordinator, a Medewuan woman, pipe carrier, water carrier, and sun dancer. Welcome, North Star.
I have my brother Preacher's copy up here. I haven't even signed it for him yet. I thought I'm going to forget what I'm going to talk about. Bujuki wait no naki koidishna kasma engel dodem St. Peter's Badonji. Our people are part of Peguis Reserve, but our people stayed behind on the Netley Creek, and so we say Little Peguis. And so I did a lot of growing up in that area and also in Winnipeg. I also spent a lot of time in Treaty 3, so very proud to be having those times, to be able to be spending it out on the land. And so then when I started this journey of trying to find myself as an Indigenous person, I went to the elders. And so I am very fortunate to have had some of the best elders teaching me along the way. And so these teachings really come from them. So we based this book on the medicine wheel. We actually call it the sacred hoop because we're getting away from that term because it's a colonial term. So sacred hoop or sacred circle, and you see that in front of us. And so we based the whole book on a wellness platform of Indigenous thinking and worldview. And then all of the chapters fit into one of those 4 directions, and you see them up front. So to even name a few, we have the principles principle, which I believe is in the South. I can't remember them all. I got to look and I just lost my spot. So you can read them up there. It was really thought long and hard about which direction these would fit in. And so when we're talking about that sacred hoop, we're talking about in that eastern direction, we're talking about the east, the color yellow, and the physical. And so the physical chapters are sitting in that direction. When we're talking about that, we're talking about that love, right? And that love that we can give our students who make mistakes in their lives. We know that tomorrow will be a brand new day. So that color yellow represents that sun. And so we were thinking about all of these teachings as we were doing our writing. And then Elder Kipling and I read all of the chapters together and infused Indigenous knowledge on top of the knowledge that these wonderful writers brought to us. Keeping in mind that in the center of that sacred circle is the self. And so when we're thinking about all of these 4 directions and our wellness, we want to keep that in balance. And so in that eastern direction, we want to talk about like tobacco being one of the first medicine. The children sit in that area. And when the children sit in that area, that's the first thing that we think about, especially as teachers. I think we give up a lot of our wellness to our students. And then as parents, and most of us in the teaching profession are women, we always think about our children. And so we're often coming home spent at the end of the day and tired and maybe not being selfish enough to really take care of ourselves. So when we think about that southern direction, I think about emotions. Are my emotions in balance? If my physical isn't in balance, then definitely my emotions are going to be a little bit out of balance. And so in that southern direction is the color red. It's the teenager. I always think of red because they're like all the emotions, right? That's the emotional quadrant of that circle. So of course, red's gonna be on their face when they're angry or when they're embarrassed. And so that red becomes that color for that direction. And so again, it makes us think about our wellness. So not just my wellness, a lot of what I do in my classrooms is not only for my students, but it also helps me. So when we do those teachings over and over and over again, the kids have a deeper understanding of themselves and how we need to keep everything in our circle in balance, which we know is next to impossible to do. Next, we go into that, the Western direction, which is Black, and it's the mental, and that's where the adults sit. And I always laugh and make the kids laugh because I say that's where we drive ourselves mental. When we're adults, we get up in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning and we go, I forgot to make Richelle her lunch, my daughter. I forgot to give that homework assignment or call that parent back. And we keep ourselves awake, and that again causes stress. So again, during COVID, there was lots of that overthinking going on as an adult. Then as we progress around that circle, we get into that northern direction where that color white comes from, which reminds us of snow. We don't want to talk about that right now. But that direction also reminds us that our elders, their hair turns white and they carry a deep and profound wisdom. They've probably managed all of the problems that our young kids are facing and we're even facing as adults. And so as we make our way around that circle, I could keep you here for a year because those teachings are really just the surface, and we can keep going around and around and around. And when I talk to the kids about these things, they have these things in gym, and I don't even know what they're called, but in their physical education classes, it's a ball with kind of like a table on it, and the kids have to stand up and really work on their core. But I also take that teaching, and I think in Monica's classroom, we actually brought one of those in and said to the kids, how easy is it to keep ourselves in balance in all 4 directions? And they would stand on that ball and they'd start to teeter because it is a game. It's a game that we have to play. I'm diabetic. I'm not a good diabetic. If we're talking about physical health, I hate exercise. So I already know that my medicine wheel or my sacred hoop or my sacred circle is tilting because it also affects my emotions. Want to know where I'm really strong? Mental. I have 3 degrees and a master's, and I'm really strong spiritually. So my sacred hoop looks like this. Right? And I have to remember, I have to talk myself into exercising because at the end of the day, I will often crawl into my onesie and hit the bed, cuddle with my puppies, and then I might eat sugary snacks. So again, when we have these conversations with young children, they have a better understanding of how to try to keep this hoop intact, how to keep themselves well if we're having those real honest conversations. They love hearing that I'm not a great diabetic. They love that I'm failing in 2 areas because it's real. I'm being honest. I'm not fibbing. I'm not perfect. And that they know that it's okay for them to make mistakes on their wellness journey as well. But the earlier that we have these wonderful conversations and embed our knowledge early in life, then it just becomes more beautiful to try to aspire to be perfect, which we know we're not. But again, for me, in my wellness journey, it was connecting back to my roots, immersing myself in my culture, and really having a deeper understanding of what that means to be connected to the earth. So a lot of the teachings that are inside the book are through elders' knowledge, Elder Kipling's knowledge of being out on the land, and also my knowledge about being out on the land and being in ceremony. Because I know that when I'm not well, I will go lay out on my front lawn, right? It might look crazy to the neighbors, but it certainly brings my blood sugars back to a normal range. If I'm out picking or harvesting medicine, those are some of my happiest times, is when we take our crew from St. James out to harvest sage. I'm learning how to tap maple trees because I'm a sun dancer, and I also am the strawberry medicine carrier for this region. So on the 3rd day of people dancing from sun up to sundown with no food or water, I'm a superstar on day 3. They know that that strawberry medicine is coming at the end of the day, and they know that I dance hard for it for 4 days with them. So I suffer with them. And so it brings me such great joy to bring that berry medicine, that heart medicine. In our language, Odemin means heartberry. So when I work with those strawberries, I have to be well. I have to be in a good frame of mind, right? I have to make sure that I'm putting good medicine into the medicine that I'm feeding others. And I really feel that we've put really good medicine into this book to help you do the best job that you can as educators, because you have such an important job to do. And pretty soon, I'm going to retire. Right? And so we need to pass that on. I wanted to give a shout out to my daughter, Taya, who I love dearly and is in Paris right now. She is actually taking a year off from education. And my oldest daughter, Amanda, is also in education. So we're going to have 2 teachers following along. I don't know what my Riel's going to do yet, but she's saying no. She sent me a TikTok today that had a man coloring in the lines on the floor, and it says, when you're married to a teacher. So she was giving me a message. She's a daughter of a teacher, so she often has to do the same things. So again, that wellness piece, right? We have our little ones, the women in our communities were the visionaries. They had clarity, they had vision, they had purpose. And that was to always keep the children safe. And that's our job as well. So with that, I say miigwech. I hope you enjoy this wonderful book.
Thank you so much, North Star, for reminding us of the importance of harmony and balance in our lives. This is a perfect segue now to introduce Shannon Gander, who is our mental health expert on the team. Shannon is the founder and director of Life Work Wellness, and it is a company that's committed to individual and organizational well-being. Her expertise and knowledge on this project has been absolutely invaluable. She brought the expertise. We had the education background, right? Shannon brought something that we really needed to make sure was grounded within this book. And she was an amazing right hand for me throughout the process. I can't even tell you how many times every chapter came to me, went to Shannon, went back to me, went to the writer, came back to me, went to Shannon, went to the editor, came back to me. It was quite a process. Really, you have no idea how many steps it takes. Catherine, I don't even know, but it's interesting. Anyway, Shannon was there with me every step of the way, so I want to thank her for that. Shannon, I have a few questions for you, challenging questions, I think. First, working on Teacher Take Care, it's been a meaningful project from a mental health perspective generally, and especially given the pandemic. How can you describe that for us in terms of how it was meaningful? And secondly, how do you see our readers being able to use Teacher Take Care as a support for their own well-being? Shannon Gander, everyone.
Lots of friendly faces in the crowd. What a pleasure to be here. Fix me up there. Thanks. It's true. When Jennifer first asked me, I said, "Oh, I can't do a book project." And then I couldn't ignore the request. I've been going for years, much like so many of the contributors to this book. I was part of what was called the balance team. And so we would go all over Manitoba delivering sessions to educators on wellness. And as you know, when you go to do that, you bring way too much content because you're hoping to leave something meaningful behind. But if you're lucky, you get people for a workshop for an hour, maybe a half-day bonus if you get them for a day and there's time for self-reflection and maybe some group sharing and maybe people make some commitments to each other. But we know that doesn't integrate wellness into our lives, right? Wellness is not an event, it's a journey. So I couldn't ignore the request. So thank you for that, Jennifer, for being persistent. I'll start there. In terms of this time and why it's so meaningful, in terms of the mental health impacts from the pandemic, increased anxiety, this is not going to be a surprise to anybody, right? Increased anxiety rates. Whenever we see increased anxiety, we see increased depression. We also have seen trauma-related responses such as PTSD. And we know that general burnout rates, 42% for women, 35% for men. That sounds very binary. It's gender neutral. The pandemic has affected everyone. And the stats for teachers, there's all kinds of them, but I'll just point out one, 97%, but this is through the Canadian Teachers Federation, out of 13,000 educators working in public health, working in public education, 97% said it took a major toll on their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And that was just 2020 to 2021. So we know that teachers finished the school year feeling like they had nothing left, that they were feeling daunted coming back in the fall, feeling like they had been holding everybody for over a couple of years, plus there's themselves and their families, but they kept showing up. And they were feeling, and coming back in the fall, feeling like this much recharged, but needing this much and so much more. And so we know that people are looking for ways to self-care. We know that it's not unnatural for people to feel like they've had this sort of pandemic shame going. It's like comparing themselves. Why is someone else navigating this so much better than I am? What's wrong with me? Well, one of the things we wanted to normalize in this book is that everybody struggles. It's hard to work in a caring profession and to prioritize our own well-being. I certainly know that even just working in my own helping profession. So if you are a teacher or working in a school community online or in this room, we wanted to say thank you because we know it's been a lot. So thank you for showing up. As it relates to how you could use this book, one of the things we wanted to do also was make it so it could be something people could integrate in their lives. It's not a one-off. If you were having a difficult time, worried about burnout, let's say, I'm going to actually reference, because we have our Manitoba authors here and you'll hear from them, I'm going to reference some chapters from the Alberta authors who couldn't be here tonight. And so burnout is an example. If you were worried about that, or someone that you care about and you wanted to know about signs and symptoms, you might turn to Joyce's chapter 7 on finding Joyce, because she talks about that. She talks about her frenetic pace and she shares her flags that she missed, right? And share, if you have been holding your breath during this time and feeling like you're barely breathing, Cher wrote a great chapter 6, called Just Breathe. If you find it hard to prioritize your physical well-being, Megan from Alberta also wrote a chapter on how to do a deep dive on how to physically be well and not by comparison. So the other thing is, if we think about the hardest part, probably for all of us, is to actually give ourselves permission. So if you find it difficult to give yourself permission to engage in your own self-care, then chapter 2 is a great start. Laura and Dana did an exceptional job of a chapter called Permission to Be Well. And throughout the book are self-reflections. So they're a chance for people to reflect on what's going on for them, whether you're getting into the field, whether you're already in the field, whether you're feeling a little burnt out yourself. It's not linear. You could pick this up and don't make it something that you add to your to-do list. Just start wherever you are, see what resonates for you, and go from there. One of the things we say is start small. So in the mental health community, we talk about practice creates state, creates trait. And so what that means is it's the smallest things that we do repeatedly that actually have the biggest outcome and the biggest impact. So what we want more than anything is whatever you choose to do, that you'll do it with compassion for yourself and kindness, because it's been a hard time. I get one more minute, I think, because I just wanted to say one more thing. I just want to point out, so 15 authors, so I'll leave us off and say 13 authors that showed up during the time of pandemic, many of which were also showing up in their schools, and they came together to write this book. Not an easy thing, right, to do. And the reason I point that out is because they came back tirelessly and showed up to make this happen, with some people growing babies, another author from Alberta having a baby, and also navigating their own losses and illnesses. And so it's been humbling and honoring to stand amongst you. And as it relates to Jennifer, since you won't toot your own horn, I'll do this in terms of mentioning, this is what does anybody know the Circle of Security program? Is that familiar to anybody? Some of you, raise your hands if that's a familiar program. Okay, yeah. And so that's like, with the parent is here and they create safety and security for their child, and then they sort of let their child out in the world and they go away and they come back and then they get safety and security again. Jennifer was that parent to everyone, I would say, because she unfailingly was gracious, supported people. She did things like, the nudge and poke, keeping people on track, and then bolstering their resilience around being able to do this and their confidence. So they go away and do some writing, and then she'd say, "You are doing exceptionally well. You have to cut 500 words. You'll be fine, I'll help you." But she always had everyone's back. And so thank you, Jennifer. It's been exceptional to work alongside you.
Thank you, Shannon, for the personal gratitude, but especially for your message about self-care and how very important that is. We've infused it very well throughout this book, and we're now going to get to hear from each of our writers on some of those topics. So I'd like to call Keith up for a minute. This is a question that we get a lot, and that is, Keith writes a chapter about mindfulness. So how do I manage to be mindful when I don't have time to have lunch or go to the bathroom? That's a little bit more relative in my mind. I'm going to have you answer that for us.
Sure, great. All right. Do my own mic adjustment here.
All right.
Well, I could spend about a week in Hawaii talking about this, but I would say from the mindfulness perspective, one of the best ways I heard mindfulness defined was mindfulness is paying attention in the present moment with kindness to yourself, other people in the world around you. And even as you're sitting here right now, I'm almost guaranteeing half of you have left the building. Actually, the stats prove it. They say back in 2010, the average human mind wandered approximately 47% of the time. That means that we're actually missing out on half of our life in the present moment. Like, where have you been? We're gonna have to do this all over again next, what day is Thursday, to get the other half of this presentation. So it's just to normalize it, it's really normal that our mind wanders off. But from the mindfulness perspective and why it's so important is coming back to the present moment, because when we're not present, our mind in that wheel we were talking about tends to wander off into stories. And a lot of those stories tend to be fear, and anxiety, and worry, and doubt, and all of those lower emotions. But when you're really here in the moment, like right, if you're really here with me right now in this moment, can you feel that you're like totally safe? Can you feel how safe this moment is right now? In order to not be in this moment, you have to go into your mind and think about what's going to happen tomorrow when I get back to the classroom if you're a teacher. You know, what's my Costco shopping list going to look like on the weekend? Or did I say the right thing earlier today in that meeting? You know, we constantly are in that fear-based thinking. So this is a practice about how am I being while I'm doing everything that I'm doing? What's the narrative going on in my mind? So I guess I would emphasize that mindfulness isn't just a formal practice of sitting on a meditation cushion doing nothing. There can be a formal practice of slowing down and creating space, but it also is an invitation to integrate it into what you're already doing as you're moving through the day. A couple of places you can integrate this would be brushing your teeth tonight. How many of us are brushing our teeth while we're wandering around the house and the mind's wandering, or just doing the dishes while we're brushing our teeth? I don't know if anyone does that, but you know, this invitation tonight to just hang on a minute before my mind and body wants to go somewhere, because we're really in this culture of on the go, to just be here and brush my teeth for 2 minutes. That's the invitation. Or the conversations we're going to have after this event tonight. When the mind wanders, have you ever caught yourself in conversation and you're not there, but you're there? You know, like tonight, to just be there in conversation with each other is a mindfulness practice. When you're eating your food, slowing down to actually taste it is a really good part of this. So much to be said about it, but I would say that's a few of the ways to think about this and how to integrate it into what you're already doing as well. So I hope that answers the question. Great.
I'd like to call Lisa up. My journey with Lisa writing her chapter was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And I think it was for her as well. I learned so much. I can say I know that Lisa learned a lot about herself and about the writing process. I'm going to let her tell you about that.
Hi, so nice to see familiar faces here. And I'm beyond grateful. And I'm just going to read an excerpt from my chapter, which is really personal. It's a really personal chapter. And deals a lot with identity. And I think in the process, I learned that if we don't know who we are, the center of that sacred circle is broken. And so here we go. I share this story, hoping that it helps another struggling person begin to gather the pieces of their own identity. There have been times when I didn't feel métis enough or felt that I didn't fit anywhere. There have been other times when I'd sit full of goosebumps and tears, listening to an elder's hushed prayer, not intellectually understanding the words said, but physically, spiritually in my bones, understanding something deep and whole and well. When I first saw the word piggy woo in an online midshift dictionary, tears streamed down my face. Piggy woo means to return home. My perspective is that of an urban Métis woman once disconnected from healthy community, now finding her way back home. My stories and teachings were not gathered over cups of tea with aunties or while walking along the creek with grandparents. They came from a variety of people who just showed up along my path, and I'm beyond grateful. I gathered the teachings like berries, learning from a lovely Anishinaabe grandmother after karate class, and from neighbors and friends and students of all ages. I learned from students' parents and from colleagues, from people in recovery rooms, from speakers like North Star. I've also been blessed and nourished by elders and knowledge keepers who have shared their stories and teachings through writing and film. My thankfulness for the helpers and teachers who have shown up along my path is immeasurable. You've given me life. Many of the teachings I received were not directly related to the Métis culture, and at times I felt less than because of that. But I've come to see that this feeling is a stark post-colonial reality. And I share this vulnerability knowing I'm not alone. Several of my university students have shared their recent discovery and confusion regarding their Métis-ness and their thirst for roots and teachings. Perhaps this post-colonial weaving of stories and ways is like a Métis sash. Different threads are integrated into something good and something complicated, something bold and useful and sacred. This chapter represents one evolving Indigenous perspective on wellness. Given the diversity of Indigenous cultures and experiences, we have to acknowledge the danger of a single story. Like the diversity of plants and creatures in a forest, there are many stories and perspectives among Indigenous people, and they are at once unique and connected. Each represents a sacred part of the whole. So I'll share from my little part of the forest, the things I know, the things I'm coming to know, and some things that others have shared. I hope if you read the chapter, you'll take what you like and leave the rest. Yeah.
I have to say that everyone who's had the opportunity to read Lisa's chapter has been riveted within the first 3 words and can't put it down. So I invite you all to share that chapter. Jackie, our arts-based person. Jackie wrote an amazing chapter about well-being and the arts. And I have to admit, and I write about this in my chapter, I'm not good at a lot of this wellness stuff. Like, you know, I'm the senior author on this book, and I still struggle with mindfulness and breathing. Like, it doesn't work for me. But give me the arts, give me music, give me dance, and I am well. So we each have to find what works for us, right? That's a big part of the message here. So Jackie, I want you to come and talk to us about what it is that you hope that readers gain by reading your chapter.
Thank you, Jennifer. We have the Beatles in common, our love for the Beatles, our love for your children. So that's really wonderful. My chapter is focused on the arts as a wellness strategy. And it's my hope that readers will begin to see themselves as artists. Some of us maintain beautifully landscaped yards. Some of us make an aesthetically pleasing table. We are all artists in certain ways. And I really want you to begin to see yourself as an artist. We're all creative in different ways, and it's a way of fostering our own wellness. Think about your personal space just in your workplace or in your homes. Think about making that place special in an artistic way, just by maybe adding an object that brings you joy. And think about the ways that it makes you feel and how it changes your perspective. Accessing that inner creativity releases those feel-good chemicals. Just think about being at a concert. How many of you have ever been at a concert and flicked your beck or shined your eye? That is just exceptional. When you are singing, somebody probably told you you couldn't sing. Well, you can darn well sing at that concert with thousands of other people, and it just makes you feel so good. That is your brain on the arts. So I really hope that my readers can connect with the chapter and find many ways of thinking themselves as an artist and actually trying some of the strategies in the chapter that maybe you hadn't tried before, or maybe you hadn't visited since you were a child. Maybe it's coloring, maybe it's sketching. But I encourage you to try these things and get your brain on the arts. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. The arts is such a big part of our lives, and I know that there's such a variety of opportunities that we can certainly all find an area where we can build on our own wellness through the arts. Monica. Monica wrote a chapter with Richelle, and some of you haven't read her chapter yet, might be just getting a book tonight. But I would like Monica to talk about one of the wellness practices that actually didn't make it into your chapter, so that we can learn beyond what's in the chapter, what you've learned about wellness and well-being.
So I heard some of us had to cut 500 words from their chapters. Yeah, North Star, I think there's something like 3,500. Yeah, we get together, we can't stop talking or writing, so that's where we were. So there were some practices that didn't make it in. What I'd like to share with you is actually based on the sacred hoop. When we were working together in one of the classrooms, North Star asked all the kids to bring in a bag of items, 10 items that represented who they were, their identity. And they came in not really knowing what we were going to do. And when they brought in those items, we began working together, and she shared the teaching of the sacred hoop and asked the students to show how those items and talk about those items, how they represent their identity, and then where do they fit? Are these, supporting their physical wellness, their emotional wellness, their mental wellness, their spiritual wellness? What fills them up? And it was just amazing to see the kids light up to show who they were in that way, to think about how their wellness is balanced or imbalanced. And when North Star talked about thinking of the sacred hoop as a drum that can tip, it really got me thinking about my wellness. And I think for me, the mental and the emotional come more easily, but the physical and sometimes the spiritual get brushed aside, or how it had been when I was teaching, because I would be giving to the kids and skipping my eating lunch while working, or just not taking time to be, outdoors on the land. And so that was one practice that didn't make it in, but connected to the rest of the book. And it just kind of goes to show that there's a lot we can do for our wellness, for our students, for ourselves. And that my hope is that this book will be kind of a starting point for those of you who choose to read it, and to take from it, to take what fits and leave the rest. And that might be part of a larger conversation in education, to realize that, hey, teachers and school staff, we matter too. It's not only it's not only to serve the kids, but just because we matter. Yeah. And that will create a cultural shift in education, where we prioritize each other's wellness and take care of each other's hearts.
Reminds me of when I go to the gym, the Bosu ball, which when I started working on a Bosu ball, that half ball, I could not stand for 10 seconds. But I've been working at it for a very long time. And so the analogy, when Richelle first talked about that analogy of the balance, I went immediately to that Bosu ball and the ability to find and stabilize the different parts of our lives. And what you said, Monica, it just is a perfect segue to talk about what Kelsey is going to talk about, because your last message of we matter as well and we need to take care of each other is exactly what Kelsey's chapter on Thank You for Being a Friend is all about. Kelsey.
I have been privileged in my career to know so many of the beautiful women in this room. My chapter in this book is a love letter to all of the people who have supported me during my career in education. I can be a tricky person to love, but those folks who are generous enough to give me a chance find themselves treated to an unusual experience in our friendship. Unfiltered honesty in all its iterations. Thank you all for loving me and for being my friend. I'm going to offer you a reading from my chapter. The section I'll read from comes from a story about the ways of the staff at the first school where I enjoyed the privilege of being a principal, supported me when I struggled. Oh, did I struggle in that work? And subsequently, how that struggle came home with me. Where's my mom? Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. On top of my struggles at work, it was getting increasingly difficult for me to keep my mom guilt in check. How many teachers live with that mother guilt? I was getting home later and later into the evening. I was often the last parent to arrive at the daycare to pick up my boys. When I got home, I was cranky and preoccupied. My laptop was my constant companion during my boys' evening activities. My white knuckle model of just get through to July was of absolutely zero comfort in February. When summer finally did arrive, I was completely drained. I spent the first few weeks of vacation taking respite on the beach, more or less comatose, and very grateful to have a summer family of lake friends whose generosity allowed my children to be oblivious to my stupor. Rhonda, are you here? Rhonda, my summer family. After I had come down, I spent the rest of July cherishing the relaxed pace of lake life. It was the balm I needed to show up, smiling at school in August and being the leader my team needed me to be.
Oh, how I relate to that. I can remember one Thanksgiving, I think this might make me cry, when Devin had to write about what he was thankful for with his parents. And he was thankful that Daddy could cook, and he was thankful that Mommy could work on a computer really well. I was writing hands-on books at the time, and I stopped at that moment. Now, I didn't take care of myself because what I did was I changed my practice and I got up at 4 a.m. every day to write hands-on books until the boys got up for breakfast so that I wouldn't take their time away. So that says a lot about what happens to parents with kids and their wellness in education. So with that, I'm going to talk to one of the heroes of leadership when it comes to taking care of her staff, Sandra. Sandra wrote an incredible chapter called The Principles of Principles. It's all about intentionally taking care of your staff. And I would like Sandra to tell us the kind of feedback she got from her staff, if any, and what that explicit focus on well-being did for everyone there.
Okay, I didn't expect to come here teary-eyed. Thank you, Kelsey.
Love you.
Love you too. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that all of us are here. And we carry something. We all come with a lot. Thank you for coming to spend your time, your busy, precious minutes here with us, because it means so much. I can see my father-in-law in the back crying. So when we did this, we were in the midst of chaos, and administrators had to be the calm in the chaos. And it was hard. And we cried a lot and we laughed a lot because we had to get through. And the feedback that we got when we intentionally focused on, the chapter that I wrote was an intentional focus on teacher wellness. And that chapter was another love letter, a promise to remember that teachers are valued, that their wellness is valued, not just the kids. So the feedback was that at first they thought, who is this coconut? Who is making me do these crazy, crazy things during our staff meetings? Because every staff meeting we would do something. And it was absurd sometimes. And sometimes it focused on really digging into what our needs were at the time. And we went from thinking it was silly to being curious to actually anticipating what was next and needing it. And so that intentionality fostered a vulnerability and a care and a culture of support that was so needed in that time of crisis. That's always needed when you're a teacher, always needed. And so we reduced the stigma of needing help. We all wallowed. We had to wallow. It was miserable. But we also celebrated. I remember one, I don't know if well, I didn't put it in there, but one time one of the activities we did was I bought a piñata and I filled it with candy and we whacked that piñata and it felt great. And man, was that good. But it brought us together. And so, you know, we needed to create that space. And we now, with having the intentionality of focusing on mental wellness, we have the space. As a leader, that's what my mission was. That's what I wanted to do. So yeah, the feedback was good. I thought it was crazy. That's okay. And so here I am telling you that it's okay to be seen as a little nutty, but you need to be intentional and explicit and create that space because man, do we need it. To the people here who have impacted my life and you know who you are, I cannot say thank you enough. I have family, friends, colleagues. Thank you. Merci. Obrigado.
And now in this new job, she has to do it for the whole division. I'll make sure of that.
I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah. So you know how we told you that we had to cut so many words? Like we were supposed to be done half an hour ago. And everybody had like 2 minutes or 5 minutes, and I'm looking at my watch knowing that we're over time already. So John, do we have any time for questions or do we have to wrap it up?
we could potentially do 5 minutes of questions if that would provide anything for you, Jen.
Is there anybody out there who has a riveting question that they want to ask one of our writers? We've answered them all.
Is it on? Is this book going to go internationally? I'm just thinking about other teachers in other countries, not necessarily Canada.
Yes, it's sold Yes, it's sold in North America, and we have a distribution in the UK, and we also do international rights sales. So we work very hard trying to sell our books to international audiences.
And Jackie and I would like to offer the first conference in Liverpool. So
Yes.
anybody want to join us with me there? Work on that one, okay, Ms. Radisson? I love Liverpool. Any other questions while we have time? I think we did pretty well on our questions. If there are no further questions, we do know that most of you are educators here. You have busy lives, and you probably have more to do tonight. We have some great people from MTS back there. We need that association to work on behalf of teachers' wellness more and more and more. And Leah, thank you, and Shauna as well. We know you're doing it. We just all need to do it more. So I would like to conclude, first of all, by telling all the teachers to go home and do some self-care. Don't go home and mark. Go and have a bubble bath or a cup of tea, light a candle. I would like to thank John and McNally Robinson for their support in hosting this event tonight. To my publisher, Catherine Gervasi, and her team at Portage and Main Press, you made this book a reality. I am eternally grateful. Every teacher who reads it will be eternally grateful. Thank you, Catherine. For this group in the first row, boy, do you ever deserve these first row seats tonight. It takes a village, right? And you are my village. I am so grateful for your contributions to this book and the relationships that we have built over the last 2 years. Thank you so much. It's been a joy, and it continues to be a joy because our work is not done yet. And finally, I want to thank everyone who's here. A special thank you to the teachers in the group, because this book is dedicated to you, and may you always take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate the shake. The microphone stand is never good. Though there have been no further questions from online, the one comment that I think does wind up being very wonderfully is Joyce, who said, Jennifer is so amazing. And I'm personally so grateful that I know her. And that is certainly one of the messages that has come across loud and clear this evening. Thank you all so very much for your warmth, your attention, your contribution. It's been wonderful spending the evening with you, and so lovely to be able to lurk in my cave out back and just listen to your presentations. I know you've all been riveted and waiting for signing instructions. Now, you'll notice there's quite a few contributors to this book. So as a result, what the contributors have very kindly done is many of them have already signed the book. So you'll notice that any book, including all those on the table over there and all those available for purchase at our cash desk, are already marked as signed copies. So please do avail yourself of those. If there is somebody who is physically present here whose signature is not reflected in the book and you would desperately love them to just add a little inscription, please do feel free to informally approach them. There's a small glass just full of pens over there beside the books as well for any contributors who do wish to sign or personalize anything. So please do avail yourself of that. You can certainly get your book signed additionally before you visit the cash desk. Just please do pay for the book at some point this evening. I'd like to remind everybody that the video of this launch will be available online as well if you'd like to watch it or send it to anybody who is unable to attend. And just close and once again thanking the good folks at Portage and Main Press. all of tonight's speakers, all of the contributors to this volume, and all of you for joining us. Have a wonderful night.